You had the opportunity to be in the back room with 3 justices and got to meet and mingle with others in the behind the scenes. And then at some point you actually have your first opportunity to go in front of them, argue your first of 19 cases before the Supreme Court. What was that like?
I was arguing my first case and I heard a voice. I couldn't locate it, and I looked along the bench and I saw Justice White down at one end, and his mouth was going like a guppy. And I thought, dear God, he's talking. He must be talking to me. I couldn't hear a word he was saying. I had just shut down. And he kept talking, and I thought, well, my God, I've got to answer him. So I did. No relation to the question. I gave this.
I spent my life that way.
Yeah. I answered him in the terms of the case, but with no relation to the question. And he looked kind of startled. Now, White was somebody who, when he got you around the neck to answer a question, he didn't let go. I mean, he'd shake you by the neck until you answered. But this time, he saw I was in deep trouble. He just leaned back and smiled and shook his head. And, you know, I've never gone back to see what the question was or what my answer was, but I can assure you that one had no relation to the other. That's my clear recollection of my first argument.
What's it like preparing for it? I mean, none of us have ever had that experience and never will. Just knowing you're going to be up there and, I mean...
The scary part is the hypothetical. Mm-hmm. You do not know what they're going to ask in a hypothetical. It can be anything. It can be anything. And you have a vision of you being horribly embarrassed by not knowing what turned out to be a very pointed, good, embarrassing question. I've got to tell you that I had a youngster who was spending his first day in our law firm. We just hired him. And he came, and I invited him to appear at my moot court. He sat in the back of the room and didn't participate, of course, and just sat there, and I thought it would be a nice experience for him, and it would show him we were really into things, and blah, 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 blah. So toward the end of my argument, I started to say, now if there are no further questions, and this kid raised his hand. I thought, what's he doing? And I said, yes. He said, Mr. Prettyman, suppose that church had been moved to a different location and an unwitting buyer went on and all of this thing. It was a hell of a question. It was a wonderful question. Right on point, but I hadn't thought of it, had no idea what the answer was. So I left that moot court distraught. And I spent 2 weeks lying in bed watching the ceiling at night trying to think of some answer to this question. And I finally came up with one. It wasn't very good, but it was an answer. And when I got to the argument, nobody asked that. They just asked the usual questions until the very end. And then Justice Stevens said, by the way, Mr. Prettyman, suppose that church had been sent over and an unwitting buyer, just almost exactly what this
My
kid had
gosh.
asked. Oh my God, my heart just went, "Bleh." And I said, well, the answer to that is clear, Your Honor.
After 3 weeks.
Right, right. And I gave my answer, which, as I told you, was not very good, but it satisfied him. He said, thank you, and on we went. If that kid had not come to that argument, I'd still be sitting there right now trying to answer that question. Oh, he has remained with the firm in good stead.